Are we ready?
Yep.
All right.
Go ahead. Um, Hi, this is Bridget. She's going to share some stories about hospice and her experience. Thank you so much, Bridget, for offering to share your experience. I know it takes a lot to get on here and share something so personal. So thank you so much. Can you tell us a little
You're
bit about
welcome.
your parents?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Well, first, I was just going to, this is a picture of my parents. So I wanted to just show that because it's very important to me when I'm speaking about them and about what had happened with their hospice. But basically, my dad at 83 was having some problems, and it turned out that he had transitional cell cancer, and it was in his the like right at the tumor was right at the top of his kidney. And so they tried to do some procedures to shrink the tumor through some, in like very minor procedures. And in doing that, the second time they found that it spread all through his urethra or his ureter and then into his bladder. So they did some more very localized chemo right through a procedure, but he had to have his kidney removed. And my dad, the urologist that he had went to, he told him, you remind me of my own father, because my dad told him that he wanted to live to be triple digits. And he said, you do your part, doc, and I'll do my part. And he was a good patient. My dad was a very good patient. But my dad was a very, very independent person. And he was 83 years old, still was working, still driving, doing everything. So he had the kidney removed in January of 2011. And they wanted to put him in a rehab afterward. Like, he was in there for about 4 or 5 days. And he said no. He didn't want to go to rehab because he did have a heart attack a few years prior, and that was the first time he had ever been in the hospital his whole life, when he had this heart attack. And he got out of that hospital in 3 days and got himself back on track right away. So my dad wanted to go home because he had an experience of, I can do better if I'm at home. I'm one of 6 kids. I'm the youngest of 6. And, we were all out of the house, but close. We all live close. So we got him home, and he just wasn't doing well. And he just couldn't get back on track the way he did after the heart attack. And he ended up back in the hospital in March of 2011. And I mean, he just wasn't getting better. And they found that the cancer had spread throughout. But we had doctors fighting with each other, basically, or conflicting with each other. We had the doctor at the hospital saying he just needs to get his strength up and then he can get to a rehab facility. We had the urologist saying that he saw more tumors, and because he felt like he was like his own father, he personally said to me, you and your family really need to consider hospice. You need to consider your father and where he's at and what kind of dignity of his life you want for him and what life will be like for him. So there still was this back and forth. And I had to really push to get this other doctor, which was actually his gastro doctor, who I ran into in the hallway of the hospital. And I said, he also was very good with him. I said, I need you to go see my dad. And my dad, I need you to tell me what I should do. And he agreed that it was time.
Right.
So we finally got everybody on the same page, and we got him to hospice. And that night when he went to hospice, the nurses told us, based on what they saw, they didn't think he was going to make it 24 hours. And we were all very exhausted. And they said, go, because it was late. And they said, go home. We will call you, but get some rest. But we really don't know if he's going to make it 24 hours. And because we're all so close, like I live 5 minutes from the hospice, we went home and got some sleep. The next day we got there and he was smiling. It was amazing. He was so happy. And he wasn't real vocal, but I told the nurses, I said, he must have opened his eyes and saw all you pretty nurses and said, no way, I'm not done yet.
Yep.
But we started we were there all the time, and he was getting very agitated. And the nurses pulled us aside after like the second or third night that there was like this 24-hour, just somebody always being with him. And they said, listen, he's struggling to let go because you're all with him. And he's a very proud man. And, you know, this isn't vocal from him. This is just the signs they were seeing from him.
Right.
And they said, we really feel as though you need to stop the 24-hour vigil. You got to let him rest and get prepared. And we did. And we still came to see him, but it was a much smaller, lower scale. And he settled. And he was in for maybe 5 or 6 days. And I got there the one night. My mom was saying goodnight to him. And I told my mom, I'm not going to go in. I want you to be the last person that he saw for the night. So I went home, and my mom went home, and my sister, and I no sooner got home and I got a call that if we wanted to be with him, he took a turn and we should get there. And I got there just as he was passing. And it was so hard, but he was staring up at the ceiling at a light, and he was reaching and reaching. And he just whispered the word, Mom. And then that was it. And it was the hardest thing for me to deal with, but yet the most beautiful thing. And the rest of my family got there as this was happening. But I'm going to tell you that it was a real struggle for us, because in the hospital, they wanted to put him on a feeding tube. They wanted to do all this stuff to him. And there was a divide. You know, half of my family wanted to do that, and half of my family didn't. And it was very hard on my mom. And it was like a weight was lifted from above when we made that decision to go to hospice, because the care he got there in hospice compared to what he was getting in the hospital, and that is not a knock on the hospital.
Right.
That's not what they're there for.
The hospital's there to make them better, where the hospice was there to keep them comfortable.
Exactly. It was just a beautiful experience. And I can tell you that I walked away from that not being afraid to die. Not that I want to, but I knew that gave me hope that my dad will be there waiting for me. So we got through this, and we're a very religious family. So we do have a lot of faith in the afterlife and eternity. And I and my family kind of rallied around my mom to help her. And, you know, they were married for over 60 years. And, you know, we wanted to help her. And unfortunately, within 3 years, my mom came down with a bile duct cancer out of the blue. Again, my mom, very healthy woman, very nutritionally sound. She ended up with this bile duct cancer that they believe she contracted through a blood transfusion back during one of the giving birth that she needed a blood transfusion. But my mom was very, I will tell you that my mom, because of the experience that we had with my dad, she was very settled and she was very okay. And being very religious, she was very okay too. But we got her a treatment that we were hoping would help shrink the tumor because it couldn't be operated on. And that was in the 2014 in the summertime. And as about 3 to 4 weeks after she got this treatment, she just wasn't feeling well. And she was retaining a lot of water and things just weren't going in the right direction. And she was at home and we were all there taking shifts and taking care of her. And one day she said to us, "I'm ready to go to hospice. It's time." And that was really hard. You know, we asked her, "Are you sure? Like, why?" And she said, I'm just ready to go. And the ambulance came and got her the next day to transport her. And I followed the ambulance. And when we got there, my mom was in so much pain that she was hiding from us, you know, and she was so desperate for this pain to go away. And she was like begging me, please just give me an Advil, give me something. I can't take this pain any longer. And I said, "Mom, we just got here. We need to," and we went back to the same, she wanted to be at the same hospice. I said, "We just got here. They're getting all the paperwork done. If you can just hang on, because if you take anything, you're not going to be able to take anything else."
Right.
And they finally came in. I got them. I said, "She needs something." I can't believe how strong she was these other days, you know. And they gave her Ativan and a little bit of morphine at that point. And my mom never woke up after that. Now, she was only in there a few days. And I think that it was shocking to some of my siblings because they didn't expect to get there and she was now asleep and never to wake up again.
Right.
And I think that there was questioning of, was too much given? But I think it's just what was needed for her. You know, we witnessed in a very short time our parents both go through this, and their end of life was very different. I would say my dad's was very active and my mom's was very peaceful and calm. Mm-hmm. And that was exactly their personalities too. So I never questioned it. I never ever questioned what they did. I believe that they did what was guided to them from their experience and from above. And it was what my mom needed. And it was very hard for me. About 6 months after my mom passed, I found myself very lost. And that's when my bereavement started, because I really didn't have an opportunity to grieve my dad, because I kind of went right to be with my mom.
Right.
And then it happened so fast with my mom. And then I just, everything hit me at once. So I went through a grieving process there, and I still grieve them often. And I still feel like they send me signs all the time. And I just, as I had mentioned to you, it made me want to volunteer in hospice,
Hmm.
because those nurses and those aides helped us so much to understand and to feel comfortable and feel that our parents were being loved and cared for, and not just another rotation. They really truly are amazing people who work in there, and I I can't say enough about what happened with my parents as a blessing, and I'm thankful for it. That's not always the case, but it also made me realize, my husband's parents are still alive. And I said, you really need to have that hard conversation with them
Right.
on what they would want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an excellent suggestion because it alleviates a lot of responsibility, and it just makes it easier for him if God forbid something were to happen. You're not guessing. And like you said, your family, you're one of six. So if your parents weren't vocal or didn't say what they wanted, then you could get a lot of infighting between family members, and it can get ugly. So
Yeah,
it's good to have
it,
it.
it was tough. And, we, it's a very difficult situation. And like, yeah, because we had a meeting one night and it was like split down the line.
Right.
And then it was, let mommy make the decision. Well, she was not emotionally able
Right.
to do that. So,
Yeah, and you don't always get that opportunity. You never know what can happen, and sometimes the person's not able to make the decision at all. And
mhm,
it gets pushed onto the children, and it
yeah.
can, it can get really tough. Um, is there anything that when you were going into hospice, looking into it at the first time with your dad, um, any misconceptions or anything like that, or did you have a pretty good idea of what hospice was?
I did have some idea because my sister and we actually worked a part-time job at the hospice when we were right out of high school. So she had a little bit more, but we were at it like a desk. We didn't really know. But what I will say is that when I would hear the word hospice, I immediately associated it with death.
Hmm.
And I immediately thought, I'm just sending them there to die.
Right.
And then I found out, that there was people there that were there for months. And it really opened my eyes, made me really realize that it's it's not just about death, and that most people, that's what happens. But there are some people who spend a lot of time there. And it's just another way of handling end of life, another way of handling chronic illnesses, really. Um, and we did look into home hospice for
Right.
my dad. That was the first thing. We looked into that. And we decided against it because my mom didn't want to live there knowing that he died there.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to make that decision on when you give the morphine and when you do stuff. So
Right.
that was, we were willing to help her, but she said ultimately she wouldn't be able to handle that.
No, and that's good because she knew what she was able to do and what she wasn't, and it made it more comfortable for her, more comfortable probably for him too, not putting any undue pressure on her.
Right.
So yeah, I think it sounds like you made the right decision, and you were able to get your parents the help that they needed.
Yeah, I'm very thankful, and I'm thankful for services like that you work in, and for all those involved. So it was a blessing for us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bridget, for sharing your story. Is there anything you would want to share with people to let them know if they're in the same boat as you were, if they're looking into hospice? Is there any suggestions or tips of anything that they should ask or keep in mind?
The one thing, no, the one thing that I loved the fact that it was so welcoming where we went, and it was you know, they just made it feel like you were going to be at home. You know, they said you can come here anytime you want. It could be in the middle of the night. They had a nice area for you to eat dinner. As you know, there it just, and I would say to look for places that have that same type of atmosphere, because you really need to feel like you're at home.
Mhm. It's great. Well, thanks again, Bridget. I really appreciate you sharing.
No
And
problem.
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. It was nice to speak, and it was nice to meet you.
It's great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Okay.